My name is Marcus Stewart, and welcome to another episode of Carving Gaming Rushmores. Today, I am joined by two guests. First, we've got a return in Extra Life editor and an all-around swell guy, Mr. Jack Gardner.
Hey everybody, it's me. I'm happy to be on an episode of the show that has a name. Now.
Yeah, right? Now you feel all legit now.
Yeah.
You can actually say the name.
Yep, Carving Gaming Rushmores.
Feels good on your lips, doesn't it?
It feels something on my lips.
All right. And that other voice in the background is a very talented game journalist and also a pretty rad dude in his own right, Mr. Kevin Slackie.
Oh, you flatter me too much. And you're going to regret saying that when I say all the bad games.
Okay. Well, you know what? It's an opinion, and even though opinions can be wrong, I still respect it. So,
do you?
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see what you got to offer. And then, the beauty about doing this over, Skype and not face to face is that I can give you side eye, and you'll never know it.
True. True.
Okay. And if you're not familiar with Carving Gaming Rushmores, here's just a brief rundown of how things work around here. So every episode, we center on one particular topic. It could be something like maybe the most influential game designers or the worst video game haircuts and anything in between that. And myself and my guest, we each assemble a list of 4 standout or premier examples of that topic, or a Mount Rushmore of that topic, if you will. Once we have shared each of our personal lists, the 3 of us will then assemble a new definitive final 4 using the entries from our list. And in the first episode, we put together a Mount Rushmore of the greatest indie games of all time. And if you have not listened to that, I encourage you to go back and give that a listen, as we had a very fantastic and very, very insightful discussion carving that Rushmore into the mountainside. So we've got one mountain that's got 4 beautiful faces that we painstakingly sculpted into it.
But we have so many more mountains.
So many more mountains. We're like in the what's a mountain range? The Appalachians. We're like that. That's a good one, right? Or
sure.
Yeah, it's in America, so it's the best one. That's all I got for that. As for today's topic, given that we are in a new year, happy 2018 to everyone listening. But before we move forward, we're going to look back on the best video games of 2017, the video games that we feel define 2017. And 2017, at least in my personal opinion, was a pretty stellar year for video games. And I would love to know what you guys think, but whittling down a Rushmore of 4 picks I knew it would be hard, but it was much more of an ordeal than I thought it was going to be. And
really? Okay.
Yeah. Because I would love to, one reason I love this show is I would love to know not only what your 4 picks are, but what was kind of your thought process and your reasoning behind how you put your list together. What were you what were you looking for in your list, or what was your kind of how did you go about defining an entire year of games with only 4 examples? And so yeah, the discussions and debates that we're going to get in should be quite the hootenanny. And and in no way did I just use that word as an excuse to use the word hootenanny.
Is hootenanny one word, or is it hoot space nanny?
No, it is one word.
Or inanny. Okay.
It's like a verb, we're going to do a hoot nanny.
Like a hoot and, you think it's hoot and nanny, like a nanny who is a hoot? Somebody had a nanny that was hilarious, so they made a word to describe, after her, man, that was a real hoot and nanny.
No, it just makes me think of, some sort of Studio Ghibli film where, the nanny is just a giant owl.
Oh, that's way more adorable than I was thinking, because I was thinking an animated Saturday morning cartoon show, with 2 characters, one named Hoot and the other Nanny, and they hang out together.
Good. Oh
yeah.
Man. Ooh.
Anyway,
shouldn't have said it out loud. It's a golden idea. Might have to steal
Trademarked.
Okay. Well, with that said, let's get this going. And you know what? Kevin, since you're the newcomer here, I'm going to throw the ball to you. So the way this is going to work is that we're each going to take a turn sharing one game from our list until we've each shared all 4. And again, like I said, once we're all done, we'll start putting our collaborative list together. So, Mr. Slackie, tell us the first game on your list and gush about it.
Okay. So the first one is probably just a little bit weird. I think that Pokken Tournament DX was probably the best fighter game to come out this year.
Whoa, okay.
Okay. In what way?
Well, Pokken was already like super solid, but Nintendo made the mistake of putting it on the Wii U. So Pokken DX is just basically the same thing with some more Pokemon and on the Switch. And basically anything that's on the Switch is already 100 times better because it's portable.
This is true.
But, I mean, people wanted a Pokemon fighting game since, like, Pokemon Stadium. So seeing it so lovingly rendered by the Tekken team and just, like, stupidly gorgeous. Like, I think you can see individual fur fibers on Suicune, but it's actually, like, fairly in-depth because it's Tekken. And, I mean, there's a Pikachu masked wrestler. I mean, what else do you really need?
That's true. It's got wrestling in there. Can I see every individual scar that Pikachu has accumulated from all his years of battling on behalf of Ash?
No, I don't think so. But Pikachu Libre is a girl, so they actually did the like gender difference there. So,
ooh. Okay, nice. Did the DX version did they add or do anything different from the original Wii U version?
So the Wii U version didn't get any of the updates from arcade. So there were 4 characters released in the arcade. I think it was Darkrai, Toxicroak, Empoleon, and Scizor. Yeah. So those were only in arcade. So those were added to DX. And then they also added Dusadui from Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Okay.
They added a fair amount of content, but only like one more stage. But I mean, still, it was a really solid fighter. I mean, not the best single player campaign and whatnot. It's kind of repetitive, but like the actual moves and everything, it's fairly well balanced. All things considered, like they could have totally phoned it in, and they decided not to.
Okay. Wow. Nice. I was not expecting that. I honestly, I'd forgotten that they'd re-release Pokken on the Switch this year, just because there's been so much has come to the Switch. For some reason, that one kind of slipped by me. As soon as you said, I was like, yeah, that was this year, wasn't it? But all right, yeah, Pokken Tournament DX, got that written down on the list. So Pikachu attempting to, I guess, I would say carve his name to a mountain, electrify the mountain. But
no, he has little hands. He could carve it.
His impotent little hands. I was like, but then he's weakened by rocks, like electric Pokemon.
And let's not pretend that Pikachu has weak hands. We all remember the pivotal moment of everyone's lives when Pokemon the movie came out and Pikachu was slapping Pikachu.
Oh, that's right. When they got that is true. The most emotional slap off in cinema history.
Yep.
So don't make fun of Pikachu or you'll catch those little hands. And paws.
That is Pikachu's catchphrase. Like, you mess with me, you're gonna get these hands.
Only it says Pika the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, what is he saying? He's just like snarling at me.
Although I hear Detective Pikachu takes a really dark turn around the second act.
Yeah, to be fair,
becomes an alcoholic.
It took a dark turn. It took a dark turn the moment Danny DeVito was not confirmed to play him. I was like, well, this movie's dead to me now. Alrighty, so Mr. Gardner.
Yeah.
Drop me one of your Rushmore picks.
I'm gonna start out with the pick that I think might be on both of your lists, and it's definitely my most mainstream pick, so I want to get it out of the way early. Horizon Zero Dawn. I think that game was amazing, and I loved pretty much every minute of my time with it. I thought, everything about it was pretty much spot on, especially the way it tackled open world games. It did it in a way that actually made an open world interesting and inviting to me, and feel like it was worth exploring. Because oftentimes I feel like open worlds just kind of get bogged down in their own bigness and just kind of feel the same no matter where you go.
Yeah.
And I feel like Horizon Zero Dawn kind of neatly sidestepped that issue and did it with a lot of grace and tact, and it had an interesting story. That, admittedly, the story didn't, like, shatter my world or anything, like some of the other games I have on my list, but, it was competently done, which in video games, competent stories are often, I feel like, overpraised, but hey, I'm not gonna knock a game for just having a good story. Robot dinosaurs with weird post-apocalyptic Neolithic setting. It was cool. I enjoyed it.
It is a cool game. That game actually, that was one of the ones I kept going back and forth about, and ultimately it didn't make my personal list.
Okay.
For reasons I will reveal very shortly. But yeah, I adore Horizon Zero Dawn for a lot of the reasons that you just so eloquently explained.
Well,
So,
that and I just like Aloy a lot. I think she's great, and also that's the first game I played that really had a photo mode in it, and I feel like that's going. Horizon Zero Dawn, like several games came out this year with photo modes.
Yeah,
I feel like Horizon Zero Dawn kind of set the bar for what that should be in a game.
Yeah, was that the first photo mode that you feel like you actively engage with?
Yeah, I mean, like, because I'm sure that there have been other games in the past with photo modes.
Yeah.
But Horizon Zero Dawn was presented in such a way that I actually was just taken in by the beauty of the game, like, all the time, and I wanted to, like, pause even in the middle of a combat and try and get that perfect shot.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I remember seeing you actually around the time you were playing that, posting those photos you were doing on Twitter for a spell. And it was, first of all, good stuff there. Good composition, regular, real Peter Parker you got going on there. That's the only famous photographer that I know of.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
He's like, oh, that real standout photographer, that Peter kid. But yeah, I played the game at launch, and I'd not played Zelda at that point, which released around the same time. So I kind of had the luxury of not having to focus on two big open world games at the time, which I know a lot of people are kind of like jumping back and forth between the two. And yeah, I fell in love with that game. Like, I love the world. Besides being kind of like a technical marvel, it just some of the world design, like that big major city where that Sun King guy lives.
Yeah.
And just kind of like they had like the giant lift and whatever, the elevator thing, and just like taking in the sights and just kind of seeing how Gorilla was like designing this new culture and like the aesthetics of it, and kind of, like kind of cherry picking just elements of like different tribal cultures that have existed prior, I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, like probably my favorite thing in that game is the story, like just that carrot of not only like trying to figure out how humanity fell and how robot dinosaurs inherited the earth, but even like Aloy's personal story of like what her connection is with all this. And I was most happy that the payoff wasn't stupid. Which is like it was actually pretty satisfying, and it made sense within the context of that world. Like it's it's very sci-fi and like, I don't say ridiculous, but it's a lot to take in. But it's I guess maybe the way they present information, like they kind of sprinkle it about to where like, oh yeah, okay, I could see that. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Like, I just remember walking away from that going like, yeah, like I got all that. And he was like, yeah, I like that. Good job. Because that was my biggest fear going into it. I was like, how are they going to make sense of this?
Yeah.
Enough praise for Horizon. Anything you'd like to say? Did you play Horizon at all, Slackie? Anything you want to add?
It unfortunately slipped under my radar because I was bouncing between like 3 games at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that
and-
came out during a rough time of the year where like a lot of big stuff was coming out around that time, so I could see that.
Yeah, like one of the things about my list that we're gonna get into, but this year I ended up playing a lot of older games that weren't from this year, or just games that came out this year that I didn't particularly care for as much, and so a lot of my games from here on out are gonna be kind of more fringe, I think. So yeah, what about you, Marcus? What do you got on your list?
Alrighty, so kind of echoing what you said with Horizon, like this game probably won't be a big surprise, and I'm curious to see if any of you have it. I'm kind of half expecting it, but it's a super mainstream pick. But I've got The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Oh my gosh, how could you?
I know, right?
That is a breath of fresh air, Marcus.
I'm just well, you know what? I'm all about giving the underdog a shot. And just try to give the little guy a chance to step in the ring and just show what he's got. You got to do that sometimes. You got to stick your arm out. But but yeah, it's so I played Zelda a little bit late. I didn't get it at launch. I picked it up around August, so I had enough time to kind of like ride the hype train, just listening to people talk it up and build it up for me. And it's very rare for a game to be hyped up that much and to not only live up to it, but in some aspects kind of exceed it for me. So open world games, the big word that a lot of those games kind of tout is freedom. And prior to this game, I thought that I knew what that was, but just from the moment you leave the Resurrection Shrine and you see the world and you see that first objective is go destroy Ganon, and then you realize that you could do that. Like you could, like, for all the talk of like big games like Bethesda games or whatever about like you can do whatever you want, like you're still beholden to like the main objective or the main quest line. Like you still have to go through all those beats. There's no getting away on it. Like you can't just go beat the game. But Zelda's like, yeah, you can just do that right now if you want to. And like if you're good enough, it's going to be hard, but if you're good enough, you could conceivably beat Ganon without touching anything in that game. And the same with like the 4 Divine V stuff. Like you don't have to do any of that, and I love that. Like I think that's so cool that I remember just thinking like, what am I gonna do? And like just the feeling of like choosing to build myself up as much as possible, and then like choosing when I want to fight Ganon. Like, you know what, we're gonna do it on my time, buddy. And I like really like, and like really truly on my time. I love that feeling that everything was in my hands, and it also helps that first of all the game to me is gorgeous. I love the addition of the little shrines. Like I know some people say they missed the like major kind of like Zelda dungeons, but for me I was okay with those smaller shrines that just kind of bite-sized, and some of them are pretty easy, but some of them aren't so easy, and I love just kind of being able to get in and out. And I think it's brilliant that they also made those fast travel points to give you incentive to hunt those down. I love the weapon degradation got a little annoying at times, but it didn't bother me as much because maybe because I enjoy survival-y games, so I kind of love the challenge of like, I gotta make the most of what I got, especially in the early hours. Like I'm just gonna grab every stick and then just work my way up, and you feel awesome when you finally find a sword that won't break after 3 hits. and yeah, but then you feel awesome when you take down something with something really fragile. It's because you kind of have to use your wits and what's on you or around you. But yeah, it's just that game's scope. Like you're always finding something new. Like I put about 35 hours into that game or more than that.
Jeez.
And like I still have not found. I have not found every shrine. I have not found every little thing. I found a lot of stuff. Like I did all the Divine Beast stuff. But I still have to find all the like Korok seeds. Just
not worth it. Not
I
worth it,
mean,
man.
it's not. No, it's not. Well, at least not at the point that I'm at, because I'm pretty capable. Like I got like the Master Sword and the Hyrulean Shield and all the good stuff. For at least that I know of. There might be some stuff in there I don't know about, which is cool because like no matter like even like dozens and dozens of hours in, I was always stumbling upon something new, and it just I don't know. Like it's just I fell in love with that game. Like I was obsessed. Like that was my first Switch game, and that kind of sold that system's like portability for me because I was always bringing it around everyone because I just had to keep playing. I was like, you know, I just need to go find some more shrines. Or like, oh, I gotta uncover this part of the map. I want to see what's over there. Like, oh man, I just found this like island that I have to survive on now or whatever. Then they won't let me go, or just all the crazy little twists that game throws at you at a regular basis is so impressive to me and so well designed. Like it's of all the open world games that released this year, and there are a lot of them, this was the one that felt like a true kind of like next step into like what that style of game could be. So yeah, I'm starting off strong, staking Link's flag into the ground. Breath of the Wild.
All right, I haven't played it, so
I actually accidentally beat it. I was trying to like get all the memories and accidentally like went into the room with Ganon. And I'm like, oh okay, I guess I'll see if I can beat him. And it's like, oh, that was easy.
Did you beat him? Like, did you already do the Divine Beast stuff, or?
I missed one of the Divine Beasts. So when you do that, you still have to fight the Divine Beast boss before you fight Ganon. But
okay.
The room in front of Ganon is actually a better place to fight them than the actual boss battles themselves. Like, if you remember the Water Temple one, that was just...
Yeah.
Ugh. But we can talk about that later.
Okay. I'm curious real quick. Which beast didn't you do at that time?
The volcano one.
Okay. Because the beasts also are tied to abilities. Like, which ability did you go in there not having? I was like, at least, to me, like, the must-have out of all of them is the water ladies, like, being able to resurrect you when you die. Like, that's the one I was like, you gotta have that one. So.
I didn't even use that one against Ganon. I mostly used Urbosa's, because that free lightning is just dumb.
Oh, yeah, it's good. It's a real good move. Alrighty, awesome. Well, Kevin, back to you. Share us your second pick.
Okay, I'm saving my more mainstream picks for later, but my second game is one that kind of surprised me. It was Battle Chef Brigade.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, for those that don't know, Battle Chef Brigade is basically a side-scroller beat-em-up / puzzle game. So, you are a chef that actually has to hunt your own ingredients. So you go, you hunt them, and then they become little ingredients that you have to then serve in like an Iron Chef-style battle. And it was just this perfect meshing of two very different genres that I wasn't expecting to enjoy, but it's like the fast pace of both manages to just gel so well, and it has so much character. I kind of expected an anime to get announced like a few days after the game came out. It was just amazing. It's one of the only games where I beat it and then I immediately just started on hard mode because I'm like, wait, I need more of this. And of course, getting it on the Switch, that just meant that I was playing it everywhere. So, yeah, no, it kind of came out of left field.
Yeah, it did.
It really showed that there can still be some very strange innovation.
Yeah, I played that. That was probably the last game that I think I completed before the year end. And yeah, like you, I fell in love with it very quickly. One, because I'm a huge Iron Chef fan. Like, there was a time in my life where I was obsessed with the original Japanese Iron Chef. So I love that a game just took that and just really ran with it. And I love Match 3 kind of like puzzle games. I was like, it's such a disparate kind of like pairing of ideas, but it works so well. And like you said, that game has a lot of personality and character. Yeah, it's very charming. And yeah, like I played it for like a few days and just like nonstop. Like I played it pretty much exclusively handheld mode and was just curled up in my couch like Gollum, just flipping switches, just like I gotta keep going. This is so good. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's cool that a game. I like to hear that game get some more love.
I remember seeing it on Kickstarter, and I was skeptical that it would be able to pull off all of those different elements and bring it together. But it's really cool when something's able to pull something off like that. So I'm glad to hear it on this podcast. I wasn't expecting it. So good job, Battle Chef Brigade.
Okay, vive la Brigade. Alrighty. So, Jack, what you got for numero dos?
Me. For number 2, and these aren't in any particular order.
No, of course not.
I want to nominate the Sexy Brutale.
Ah, Tequila Works.
Have either of you? I don't think that is that Tequila Works.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, they released that and Rhyme this year.
Okay, yeah. The Sexy Brutale is this awesome game, and it was a really nice breath of fresh air. Because I like, as it is every year, there are a lot of games about murdering and killing pretty much everything you come across. And the Sexy Brutale is like the inverse of that, and the premise is you as a character are invited to this casino for this big party, and it's a masquerade party, so everyone's wearing these masks, and you are killed but are then resurrected by these spirits, and your job is to prevent all the murders that are going to happen at the Sexy Brutale at this casino. And so it's like a puzzle adventure game where first you have to figure out how someone got killed, and then you have to figure out how to undo their murder. And so there's like a time rewind mechanic. And the catch is you can't be in the same room as anyone else. So you have to like take away or move things around, but change the scenario so that when the murder happens or the killing happens, or is supposed to happen, you have disarmed it to an extent. And it's really fun and interesting and charming, and I highly recommend it. It was an incredible breath of fresh air this year.
Awesome. I also would nominate it for one of the best named games of the year.
Yes.
I love that name, the Sexy Brutale. Awesome. I've been meaning to get to that, and they added it to Switch recently, so that'll probably be the version I pick up. But sounds like a sexy good time, and I wanted to say that, sexy good time. That's the back of the box quote for that game. Alrighty, so I've got next up a game that might be one of my biggest surprises. I came into this year really feeling indifferent about this game, and then it walked away being one of my standout. Nier Automata, or Automata. I still haven't decided how that's pronounced. But that Nier game, the Nier sequel, thinking about this game, like, more than most games this year, like, I played it earlier this year, and it has stuck with me in so many ways. And one of the ways is that on paper, it looks like a pretty decidedly average game. Like, the combat, so it's made by Platinum, and it's a sequel to Nier by Yoko Taro, which I did not play, and this is actually the first of any of Yoko Taro's games that I've played, so I came into it as a complete newcomer to his stuff. But I love Platinum, and I love like the crazy hack and slash combat that they usually do, and Nier has a lot of that, and it's good in this game, but it's also been done better. And the character designs are really, really cool. Like 2B and 9S's characters look awesome, but contrasting that are the pretty dated looking environments and some of the level design, and the map system's not that great. And also the story, which is so just, it's a lot of things. It is bizarre both in the actual writing and the way that it is structured, but it also it can be as confusing as it is thought-provoking. And even now, I'm not 100% sure what happened in that game. And so, like, looking at that on paper, this should just... I feel like I would have to write this off as, like, it's okay. But, like, it isn't. Like, it's very much kind of like... It's more about it's not so much about it individual parts, it's just the sum of its whole. It forms this incredibly memorable whole that it is such an anomaly of a game where, like, I loved it. Like, I could not put it down. Like, after that... So if you're not familiar, the game... kind of, you have to play it multiple times to get the true ending. So, like, there's, like, playthroughs A through Z, though there's only about, like, maybe 7 or 8 main playthroughs, like the quote-unquote right playthroughs, and there's a bunch of, like, fail playthroughs, depending if you screw up. And oftentimes you won't know that you did something wrong until you get this weird, like, ending and credit sequence, and then they'll start you back later. And there are some faults with the way that's designed, like, especially the times where you kind of have to, like, replay certain segments over again, like longer stretches. But the way the story kind of builds upon itself with each ending, and especially after the second ending, where when you get the ending C, things just really go off the rails and become crazy. It's worth playing through all that just to see how things are layered on top of each other, because you'll see things from different character perspectives, and then stuff that was really vague in one ending gets more illuminating by, like, the second or third ending. And you're kind of, once you replay it again, you're like, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. And it's like some of the themes of, like, like AI, the morality of, like, killing AI, like sentient AIs, like what makes a human and all that good stuff. Like, that's been, done before in myriad other media. But it's still very thought-provoking here, even though there are times where they kind of beat you over the head with it. But it's so much fun, not only listening to that story, but interacting with the world, because the game gets so meta. Like, it is so on board with, like, the idea of, like, you're a robot, to the point where, like, it gamifies, like, system settings, and even, like, like the save system of saying, like, well, there's no auto-saving because, you're a robot, so you have to save in these terminals, because that's where you recharge your batteries and stuff like that. So, like, the game straight up tells you, like, you can't auto-save. Don't, because that doesn't make sense in this world. And you're like, what? And it was like, I love that. Like, as annoying as that occasionally got, it was less annoying than you would think, at least for me. But, like, I love that, just that dedication to an idea and a theme, and just going full, just 110% with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's a weirdness that I don't see outside of, like, maybe Metal Gear. But it's so good in this game, and it's so many parts of it are just so endearing, and how, like, its bizarreness. And yeah, like, the game takes so many cool chances. Like, I just feel like it deserves, like, a spot for just being a game that just took so many risks and went so many weird ways, and also just being this complete surprise. Like, just, it seems like a lot of people were caught off guard with how good this game was.
Yeah, I mean, like, I still have yet to play it. I feel like I need to be in the right frame of mind to play it and properly enjoy it, which is part of why I haven't started playing it yet. So similarly, why I haven't started playing Wolfenstein New Colossus. So that's not on my list, but yeah, I really admire when things are just unabashedly themselves. And from everything I've heard about Nier Automata, they just had creative control and just went with it. And I love it when things like that turn out to be really well done and interesting.
Yeah, it's really something else. Like, it's one of the games I don't like talking about too much. It's very much a game that benefits from, like, the less you know, the better.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to add, Kevin? Were you able to get around to this one?
So this was actually my third pick.
Okay, that works. So feel free to add.
And the way he sold it. So I am firmly in the camp of believing that Nier Automata is going to be used in game design classes like a decade from now, just from all of the like various interacting systems, changing genres like whenever it felt like, and also just so one of the things that I feel Shigeru Miyamoto does best, he didn't work on this game, but like, is whenever he's making a game, he asks the question, and then what? And so basically Nier Automata is, hey, these robots are sad, this is what's happening. And then what happens? And it's just progressively getting more and more ridiculous, but still like within that base logic. So I just feel like as not even as a whole, just every single part of the game was absolutely ridiculous. The soundtrack was just beyond amazing. And I feel like
it has an amazing soundtrack.
The true ending is something that could only have been done in games. Like, I can't really spoil much, but that final choice that is given to the player really just sort of like sets the tone and sort of makes you question who you are at the end of the game. Like, do you choose to make this sacrifice that, I mean, there was a way around it to cheat and get it back, but at that time, you realize that in order to do this, so many other people had to make that same sacrifice, and so in this game that is just bleak and dark and sad and full of robots killing themselves and making carnivals, there is this message of like, there is still hope though. There is still something different. And yeah, I knew about Drakengard. I played it a little bit, but I didn't realize that Yoko Taro was just this ridiculous genius. And after playing Nier, like, not many video games have made me had to stop playing and recompose myself before continuing on. So just the actual plot twists weren't that predictable, and the game just really managed to hit in several places. I'm very sure that we're going to see a whole lot more of this. I mean, come on, it's got really dumb DLC. I think you fight the CEO of Square.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's right.
That's the one part of Nier Automata that I've seen in action.
Yes. Not to mention that you can buy the trophies.
Yeah. So it's basically, for me, it's also another game that just completely said, we don't need video game tropes. We're just going to make something good.
Very much so. Awesome. Well, good. All right, we got 2 in the Nier camp. So, since that was your third, Jack, what is your third?
So my third, I'm gonna go with my most out there pick so far, and it's kind of along the same lines as Pokken Tournament DX, actually, in a way, just in a different genre. But Danganronpa 1-2 Reload.
Okay.
So I've never played Danganronpa. I don't know if either of you have played those games.
I have not. I've been meaning to.
Okay. Kevin?
Same. I actually picked up the first one and then found out that, a first Danganronpa on PS Vita that is still factory sealed isn't something I should open.
Yeah. Well, so Danganronpa 1-2 Reload released this year on the PlayStation 4, and I had like this small subsection of friends that had always been telling me, "Oh, you gotta play this game. It's really good. Blah 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 blah." And it was one of those things where I was like, "Yeah, whatever. I don't have a PS Vita. I'm probably never gonna be able to play it anyway. So, too bad." And then it came out on PS4, and so I finally caved and played it this year. And it was super interesting and good. And it definitely has problems, but it was one of the most interesting games I've played this year. So far I've only played the first one, the thing that released on PlayStation 4 is both the first game and the second game in the series. But I played the first game, and it's really great. And the general setup of it is that there is this high school in Japan, and it's the most prestigious high school in the entire country, and it only accepts students that are like the tops of their fields in whatever field they're in. So you have, baseball stars and pop idols and geniuses, like all these different kinds of people are coming to this school, and the protagonist wins a lottery, proving that he's the luckiest student in Japan. And they all go to this school, and then on the very first day of school, they get there, they walk in, and all of them fall unconscious, and they wake up in this twisted version of the school where all of the windows are barred up, all the exits are sealed, and they're summoned to the gym by this creepy teddy bear type character who informs them that they have been locked in the school, and the only way they can get out is by playing a game. And the game essentially is you can either stay inside this school for the rest of your lives and live, and you'll have all your needs cared for, or you can murder someone and then get away with the murder. So the game turns into kind of this visual novel kind of just experience simulator where you're living alongside all these other characters and kind of getting to know them, and coming to know their histories and their lives and liking them, disliking them, all that stuff. And then all of a sudden someone will try and there will be a murder, and then it turns into this investigation. So you have to investigate the murder and figure out who did it. And then it transitions into a courtroom drama where you have to present all the evidence you found and figure out who did the murdering. And then that all takes place around this backdrop of trying to figure out how to get out of this school. And it was super interesting and good, and I loved it. It was great. So highly, highly recommend that series of games. So check it out.
Alrighty, Danganronpa. I pronounced that right. Okay.
You did. Good job.
Thank you. I try. Alrighty, so Danganronpa for you. And my number 3 is another probably not surprising pick, but I adored this game, and that is Super Mario Odyssey. Not only is for this game's own merit, but this year was a very awesome year for platformers, surprisingly. And I wanted a game to kind of represent that, and this was my favorite platformer of the year. I'm a big Mario fan, though I've never played all of Mario 64, and that's just because I didn't have an N64 growing up. So, I played Sunshine, but that was my only frame of reference for, this particular style of Mario. So, I went into this, it felt cool to kind of, in a way, kind of, finally getting a chance to play Mario 64, but, a much more polished version of it. And the whole, so if you're not familiar, kind of the big hook with this game is that Mario has a sentient hat named Cappy, and you can, I know, right? Great. And you can throw Cappy onto damn near anything in this game, and then Mario captures, quote unquote, the thing, and you can control the thing. So, you can throw it on a T-Rex, and then you can just go around, and T-Rex grows a cute little mustache, and you can just rampage through rocks. And it could be something as, fantastical as that, to something as, mundane as, throwing it on, a sewer drain lid, and just, moving it out of the way so you can go into a sewer. And I love that about the game. This game encourages kind of experimentation and digging around in a way that other Mario games haven't. And it's impressive how much the design kind of takes into account all the different ways that players could interact with that world. I felt like there were times where I would complete a platforming challenge in a way that the game didn't intend, but then you kind of think it did, because oh, that didn't seem like the first way you would do that, but it would work. And that was kind of in the same way that Zelda would allow to as well. But like, I don't know, like, just I had so much fun just throwing my hat on everything in that game and being surprised that it would work in some way, and all just the act of like finding every single moon. Like, I still haven't found all of them, but like, it's so much fun scouring all of those pretty dense little the kingdoms, and like some of them are really easy, but just like the harder ones are so much fun to uncover. And that game's like, the presentation and the music, like, it is such a joy to play. And then maybe that's one reason why it's I have such a fond appreciation for that game, because 2017 in a lot of ways was kind of a bummer outside of video games. So that was a great escape from all of that stuff. Like, it was pretty much the anti 2017. Just like, I'm just gonna go in here and I'm gonna possess this dumb like Maui statue with sunglasses and walk around the desert, because why not? It's dumb, but it's fun at the same time. And also the way that game also pays tribute to Mario's history with just like the 8-bit Mario stuff is really, really cool. Like, there's certain pipes you can jump in, and then you'll be on a surface that goes straight to like 8-bit NES Mario, and you'll do these platforming challenges. And what I love about that as well is that another big thing in this game is that you can buy all these different outfits and just run around dressed up in just all these different combinations of suits and hats. And I love that translates in the 8-bit mode. And just the idea that Nintendo made new sprites for this game is really cool to me. And yeah, it is such a weird Mario game, but it is so much fun. And also, maybe arguably the best Bowser battle. Like, the whole final sequence of that game is amazing, and I won't even tease what it is, because it's something that you should see for yourself. But the last world of that game's story is really something else, and I think one of the highlights of the entire Mario series.
Dang. Okay, big words.
Big words.
I actually did really enjoy it, because it's just so surreal seeing Mario like basically possess people. Like, I feel like New Donk City was probably one of the weirdest levels in Mario. 'Cause I'm not even, like, super terribly interested in Mario, but it was enough to get me to play this one. And it's another example of, like, Nintendo just going, and then what? Because that's why you see, like, the game design just basically predicts every possible thing that the player can do, despite the sheer amount of freedom that they give them. So, yeah, I can't agree with you.
Alrighty. So, Super Mario Odyssey. There we go. And now we're on to our final picks. So, Kevin, take it. What's your final 4?
Okay. My final pick, I feel, is the seminal 2017 game, and that's Persona 5.
Okay.
Basically, a whole bunch of youths getting really annoyed at the government and, like, people in large just wanting to destroy things and being like, hey, wait a second, maybe you should stop being such jerks. It's just,
as you would,
a big mood for 2017. And just like the music coming together. It's, I don't really replay too many games, but I keep going back to Persona 5 and just trying to get that platinum, because they just added so much, and like finally putting in the demon negotiation system from the Shin Megami Tensei series gave such personality to the personas normally. And yeah, it was just, it's a very detailed game, and although Persona could do a lot better with their LGBTQ representation, I want to make sure I got that acronym. It still manages to just be like a ridiculously fun game that hits the emotional points that it's trying to.
Okay, awesome. Honestly, Persona 5 might be, it's up there for like the biggest game that got away from this year. I really wanted to get around to it, but just didn't. So it's on my 2018 list for sure.
Yeah, and it's a little hard to recommend because it takes at least 100 hours to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
It's a commitment. You're into like a short-term relationship with this video game because you got to actually like play through it and date those waifus and go fish and all of that weird life stuff.
I mean, I feel like 2017 was really the year for just huge games.
Yeah,
like,
and it all came out, or not all of them, but a lot of them came out towards the front half of the year. Because Persona 5, I feel like it was like in the ballpark of like Zelda and Horizon.
And Nier.
And Nier, and Mass Effect. And it was just like, like, what do you play? Like, what do you make the time for?
Unfortunately, I made time for Mass Effect, and in retrospect, that was a mistake. But we're not getting into that right now. Too much to get into there.
But you know what you can get into is your final pick.
So my final pick, I was trying to decide between two games, and I eventually set aside Pyre because I really enjoyed Pyre, and it's the best NBA Jam game that we've ever had since NBA Jam. And my final pick is Rime for 2017, and I know it's might not be like I don't know if it'll hold up, or there's a part of me that thinks maybe it's a little bit too simplistic, but it was probably the game in 2017 that hit me the hardest. For those of you who don't know what Rime is, it's basically the journey of this young kid who seemingly was in some sort of accident at sea, and he washes up on this island and begins trying to navigate the island and use its various ancient technology to figure a way out. And it is absolutely gorgeous. It has this very minimalist approach to game design that I always really appreciate. Kind of a Team Ico type, kind of an Ico style game, and it was just really solidly good and was able to bring me through the emotional beats it needed to hit. It was able to hit the emotional beats it needed to hit in order to kind of bring me along with the game to kind of its final conclusion. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that to this day still have like a visceral reaction to that moment that they had to incinerate the companion cube in Portal. And Rime has moments like that are so much worse, so hit you on just a gut level, or at least they did for me. And then it has probably one of the greatest final scenes of any game this year. That I'm not gonna spoil it or anything. You should probably just go play Rime. I remember seeing the trailers for this years ago, and I was really looking forward to it. And I think that Tequila Works has always kind of had this glimmer of of great games that they could have made and just haven't been able to fully deliver. And I think this year, especially between the Sexy Brutal and Rime, they really delivered in full on their potential. So I'm happy for them, and I'm excited to see where they take their studio next, because they make some really weird and interesting games, and weird and interesting in video games is something I really value, because I feel like oftentimes a lot of games fall into the slight variations on similar subject matter. But yeah, that's my final pick.
All right, Rime. Got that in there. Awesome. Well, my final pick, was the hardest to decide for my list, and it ultimately came down to, like you, Jack, two choices. I wanted a game to kind of like give a shout out to the indie scene. So the game that did not make this list, I want to give a quick shout out to, was Night in the Woods.
Okay.
And yeah, like I think that's a very awesome kind of narrative adventure game that everybody should go out and give a shot. But the game that trounced it after much deliberation was Cuphead.
Okay. Yep.
Love me some Cuphead.
I was wondering when we would get to that.
When you, oh,
I thought for sure. I thought for sure it was gonna come up here at some point. So I'm glad it did.
Yep, here it is. You saved the best for last. Yeah, that game is I mean, presentation aside, which is obviously that game's biggest talking point, and well deserved, because if you haven't seen it or are familiar with it, it's a kind of like Contra-esque platformer with a like 1930s cartoon aesthetic, and it nails that presentation so well. Like there's very few games that I go out of my way to show like family members or non-gamers, especially like as I've gotten older. But this was the one where I like literally had to pull, like I had to have my mom like pull her aside and like, look at this game, like look at this. It's like there's literally nothing that looks like this, and she's like, oh wow, like that looks really cool, like it looks like a cartoon. I was like, right? And yeah, like just the scratchy sound effects and the music, it evokes that style so well. And on top of that, it is a damn fun platformer shooter to play, and it's also very, very difficult. But what's great about that is that, at least to me, like I know a lot of people were, or at least a fair amount of people were turned off by the difficulty. I think that game is so well designed and polished that like every death is your fault. Like as tough as those boss battles are, none of them are insurmountable. Like the patterns of the enemies are pretty easy to read, and yeah, there are times where like, you know, something will happen to you where you're like, well, how would I have known he was going to do that attack unless I get hit? But at the same time, that's kind of what the old school era of games were all like, is like you don't know until you get there. So you know, there is some trial and error of like, okay, like, well, now that happened, I know what to do next time. But what I love about that game in terms of the boss battles is there's a progress meter. Every time you die, it is a little meter that shows you exactly how far you got in that boss battle, because all the bosses have 3 different stages. And to me, that is one of the smartest mechanics I've seen in any game this year, and I think every designer, or not every designer, but most designers should steal that ASAP, because it kept me going so much. Like, because just seeing like you're right at the finish line, like you die, and you're like, I was right there, like if I got one more hit, I would have won. And just having that gauge of like, okay, I'm doing better as I keep going, it makes you want to keep going, as opposed to like not having any idea if you were even close to toppling a boss. So like I think in terms of like cool mechanics and hard games, I think that might be the best one since like the instant respawn in Super Meat Boy. And also just the boss battles themselves. So the game is largely made up of boss battles. There's a few like kind of traditional run and gun platforming levels, but it is pretty much like 75 to 80% boss battles. And the bosses are so well designed, and outside of like how creative they are, the way they transform is so inventive and imaginative. Like every fight is a complete spectacle, and they're all so different from each other for the most part. There are some of the, at least, I mean, there's mostly shooting levels, but there's a few like flying and like in an airplane and shooting at dudes. But like the bosses themselves are all completely different from each other, and they're all memorable. Like I remember every single boss, and granted, maybe some of it has to do with having to fight all of them repeatedly. But even still, like I can't think of a boss that was like I would consider like a dud in any way. Like, you know, I like some more than others, but there wasn't one where I was just like, oh, that sucked or anything. So yeah, that's for a game that's all about boss battles. It's so cool to not only that they nailed all of them, but just like the amount of craft and imagination that went into putting all of them together. Like some of them have specific themes tied around them. Like there's one where like it takes place on like a stage play, and like you're fighting this actress, and like every transformation represents a different act of the play. and the play is kind of like focused on like her life. So like you'll start with like her single, and then like she has a kid and stuff like that, and like the fight reflects that. I think is really cool. And yeah, like it is like top to bottom, it is such a well designed and polished product that has like, and again, that presentation is just, it really is something else. So yeah, Cuphead, it's an absolutely amazing game. So if you have an Xbox, because it's only on it's exclusive to the Xbox right now, it's, to me, I think it's a must play, not only for this year but probably this generation so far.
It's also on PC.
Oh yes, it is on PC. So if you have PC, play the game. No excuse. There you go.
So what are the picks?
Alrighty. So we've got 11. So this is cool. Like we've pretty much, there have been very very few shared games on this list. So run them down, and if I missed any, please call me out. But we've got Pokken Tournament DX. We've got Horizon Zero Dawn, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, Battle Chef Brigade, The Sexy Brutale, Nier Automata, Danganronpa 1-2 Reload, Super Mario Odyssey, Persona 5, Rhyme, and Cuphead. So here we go. Now we are making our final four. So right off the bat, I'm gonna just say this right now in Zelda. Anyone? Come on.
I mean,
I say that we could put Nier on the list because I have problems with Zelda.
Okay. You have not played Nier, Jack.
No, but both of you have vouched for it, and honestly, the one clip I saw of just for the bizarre audacity of a game to include a boss fight with the producer of the game, or the head of Square Enix, whichever it was.
You can also fight the head of Platinum Games.
Yeah, I mean that's alone is just bizarre and amazing, and I loved it. So I mean, I'm totally cool with Nier going on the list. Honestly, a lot of these games I would be 100% behind letting on the list. But it's going to turn into a bloodbath pretty quick. But Nier, from everything I've heard, probably deserves to be on there.
Alrighty, so there we go. Nier, you did it. You made the list. You just made the list. That's a reference for some of you guys out there. Alrighty, so is there any other game that either of you guys passionate about that you want to spill your guts for right now to get on this list?
I mean, I'm pretty passionate about Rhyme. I understand why Danganronpa might not make the list, because it's both of you haven't played it, and it's really hard for me to make the case for it when I don't want to spoil it for you or for anyone listening. Needless to say, it's probably one of the most empathetic and interesting games that technically didn't come out this year, which is another point I can see against it going on the list. So I'd fight for Rhyme, and let me put it this way: Rhyme or The Sexy Brutale, one of those games should go on the list. And I feel like Horizon Zero Dawn probably should go on the list, but I want to hear out arguments for the other games that we have up there.
I have an argument somewhat against Rhyme, so I played all of Rhyme as well.
Okay.
Kevin, have you played Rhyme at all?
I haven't, and that might actually be an argument against it, because I was going to get it on Switch, but then heard about all of the nasty bugs.
Oh.
I have not encountered any bugs, but I also didn't play it on Switch.
Apparently the Switch port was done very poorly.
Oh, okay. Well, the PC version works completely fine.
Okay. I played it on PS4, which I'm pretty sure I didn't have any problems with it that I can remember. I liked Rhyme overall. I will also say that I was slightly disappointed from it. I think I wanted more from it than I got. you mentioned before, like, the simplistic puzzle solving, and I think that was kind of my biggest problem with the game, is that, I don't know, the puzzles just, yeah, like, they didn't grow enough for me. Like, I was fine with it in kind of, like, the early hours, but I was like, okay, like, sooner or later we're gonna get into, like, the real meat and potatoes here, especially, like, so I remember, talking to like the designer, and like he got me excited saying like, oh, you know, the mechanics that you get, they're all going to kind of like stack on each other over time. I was like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. And to me, it didn't quite live up to that promise of, like, I felt like I was still playing some of the intro hours at certain points towards the end of it. I will agree with you that I think the ending of that game is very memorable and beautiful, and probably the best part of that game is the ending to me. But
honestly, like the last, well, okay, I see what your argument. I would never recommend this game as a puzzle game, because it's much more in the vein of almost like a walking simulator style adventure game. It's much more about moving through each of these levels, and there are just kind of these minor roadblocks, or honestly, I think of them more as like thematic roadblocks, because you're really not working through puzzles, you're working through these different stages, and each of the stages has kind of its own their own challenges, and it's less trying to figure out the complicated puzzles of it and more so dealing with each of these problems as they arise and kind of moving on through them. And I think to me it all felt really thematically cohesive. Like everything in there was there, and it served a thematic and narrative purpose, even if it didn't necessarily make for the best like puzzles or most interesting puzzles. That and the visual design was incredible. I looked forward to just every single time you got to a new place, you saw new stuff. Like the introduction of the shadow creatures was particularly memorable for me. And then the way that the game presents its central mystery and is able to kind of tug you along to the very conclusion. Then that conclusion sheds new light on the entire game and basically makes you want to replay it so you can kind of get a second look at everything. I thought that was very masterfully done.
Okay. All right, we'll shelve Rhyme for now.
Okay.
Because we have plenty of picks to cycle through.
Yep.
Kevin, can you convincingly argue Pokken Tournament on the final list?
No, I can safely sacrifice that one because just like Jack was saying, it's technically a re-release of a game.
Okay, so you're officially ditching it?
Yeah, my passion project can be Persona 5.
Alrighty. So Pokken shall go back into Pokeball, and I guess we've officially retired Danganronpa as well.
Yep.
Right,
honestly, it was more of an advertisement pick to anyone listening. You should play that game. But I understand that it might not be able to make the Rushmore of best game of 2017.
Alrighty, so Danganronpa's off. The bear can go back in his cave. He lives in a cave, probably. I don't know.
Is off the bear? Is that a saying?
Bear goes back in the cave. You know, it's like it's a cool way to say it's gone. I'm trying to be cool, okay? He's a bear.
You're a cool bear.
I can barely believe you said that.
I thought you were gonna say that my joke was unbearable.
Okay, we need to stop.
You know what? You guys are especially killing me here because we're shelving Danganronpa, and the main antagonist of the game makes bear puns all the time.
Oh, so even more reason to take it off the list. Let me double cross that off. There you go. No bear puns on this list. Not today. Alrighty. All right. the Sexy Brutal. Jack, this is the other game you're pretty hot for. I have not played it yet. Kevin, you haven't played it either, I believe. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you gave us the pitch before. Is there anything you'd like to add to that? It sounds cool, and
It is cool. It's like I don't know. It's like a puzzle game where you're saving people's lives, and there isn't any combat, which is really refreshing, especially in a year where it was very combative both in and out of games, and Sexy Brutal was a really intriguing and stylish adventure. It has a very, very great vibe. It's a kind of a world you want to stay in for a while and learn more about, especially as events unfold and you continue saving these different people. But it's really hard to sell it to people without like visual aids or yeah. So I feel like that's going to be a losing battle just because neither of you have any experience with it, and there are also still so many great games that we have to either knock off or put up. So
alrighty. I will mostly take Sexy Brutal off the list, but I won't. I'll say it's almost off, but it could come back. I just want to give everything else kind of a chance. At least trying to get to the games that like more of us have played to see if we can debate. Man, so let's get into Breath of the Wild just right now. All right, so
okay.
Jack, you haven't played it at all, right?
Correct. So I'm taking myself out of this discussion because I feel like Kevin has a lot of has some things, has some words.
Kevin's got his sleeves rolled up. He's got a bone to pick. So like I've gushed about the game. So Kevin, I want to hear what first of all, are you willing to see this on the final list? And if not, tell me why.
Okay. So this is going to be fun because Jack, you're technically the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I will be the arbiter.
So I played a lot of Breath of the Wild. Don't get me wrong, it's a good game. But during my time with it, I noticed that I had more fun messing with the systems in the game than the actual curated content. Like, dropping a box on a goblin was way more fun than any of the bosses I fought. Like, never before have I played a game that had such terrible boss battles. Just in general. There is not a single boss in that game that you can fight and you're just like, I'm having a good time. Which was just so crazy to me, because Zelda's normally the like, hey, you do 3 things and then you defeat the boss. But like, I remember at one point during the water temple just keep constantly getting knocked back into the water and just being like, ugh, this is awful. And like, even the DLC, which sort of brought me back, just really, after I accidentally beat the game, there wasn't really much tying me back into that world. Because, yeah, some of the shrines are great, like, I actually don't miss the dungeons, but some of them really just did not work. In that experimentation, they end up with, like, terrible motion puzzles. Some of them, like, just don't give you the supplies that you need in order to actually finish the puzzle, requiring you kind of to just leave. And although the game kind of allows you, kind of has that openness, it's still a little curated, maybe not so much as Mario, but enough that you can't really do anything to, like, break the game. So much so, like, yeah, you can go and try to fight Ganon, but realistically, the normal players is just probably going to go and do the Divine Beasts in the order that the game sort of, like, nudges you in. So I will say that, like, the weapon degradation, I felt like that was fine. I honestly never ran out of weapons. It almost seemed useless. But yeah, I think it was like fighting the Lionels that I realized, yeah, the actual game itself isn't as fun as how I'm messing with it. And honestly, also just Zelda Rain. That's it.
Zelda. Oh, are we talking about the actual? Oh, okay. I think you're talking about like the actual like rain mechanic.
So Jack, if you haven't heard of this, whenever it's raining and you're climbing in Zelda, you just slip. So a lot of playing where you basically like you're climbing up a mountain and it starts raining, and you just sit there waiting for the game to stop raining, and it rains so much.
Yeah, some areas more than others. It's like if you're in a desert, obviously it's not going to rain, but like there's like a rainforesty area where it's like pretty much raining all the time, which makes sense for that climate, but it's also like if you go there with the plan of like I'm going to climb everything here, you might want to find a different way to do that.
So I haven't even played Horizon, but I would almost put my vote to it instead of Breath of the Wild, because at least Horizon like did some very unsafe decisions. Well, I wouldn't say unsafe, just different decisions, like, having a strong female protagonist, having an open world and not just filling it with busy work. Like, let's be honest, Korok seeds are busy work. That's why when you get all of them, like, Nintendo gives you poop because they don't give a shit.
Are you saying that Link? Wait, are you saying that Link isn't a strong female protagonist?
No.
Oh, sorry, Zelda.
No, Link.
Yeah, it's Princess Link.
I am also just kind of upset that they didn't just make it about Zelda. Like, the game is called Legend of Zelda, not The Legend of Link.
To be fair, she probably gets more spotlight in this game than maybe any other Zelda game.
Yeah.
Remember when they revealed Breath of the Wild and everyone thought that Link was going to be a girl? That would have been a really cool decision.
I remember at the time, I think I wrote a blog piece or something arguing that if nothing else, this should be the first game where they give you a choice to choose Link's gender at the beginning. Because like, what difference would it make? Because like, it would literally change nothing.
Yeah,
if Link was a boy or a girl. Because it's not
like Pokemon. Basically, change some pronouns and the story is exactly the same. Because it's not like Link and Zelda ever like have romance. Like, even Mario and Princess Peach do more than Link and Zelda. Like, at least Peach kisses Mario on the cheek sometimes.
Yeah, at the very, very most, they're like friends with privileges. And even that's like a stretch.
And let's be real here. They could literally keep practically the same character model for Link.
Yes,
either
and
way.
I remember seeing people argue that it wouldn't make sense in the world, and my counterpoint was like, why not? Like, the hero of time. The hero of time.
You could just leave it at why not.
Well, because they were saying like, well, the hero of time has to be the same. Like, no, it doesn't. He can reincarnate in a woman's body. There's no rule against that.
Yeah, and
reincarnation works.
Well, they didn't do it. Koei Tecmo did, where they finally made like a lady Link. What was her name?
Yeah, Linkle.
I didn't
for Hyrule
name, but like at least they tried something, which is more than I could say with Nintendo. They were fairly safe with Breath of the Wild, like
at least in that specific regard.
They're gonna be. It's like the launch game for their new system, but they could have. There were things that could have been done that would make this a game of the year. I just don't think they did.
I just have to question fans of the Zelda franchise who are like, no, Link, it's just too ridiculous for Link to ever be a woman in a universe where you can find a magic talking hat that shrinks you down to like the size of a pea. Like,
yeah.
Or like there's a phantom train or talking boats. But the thing that breaks it is the protagonist suddenly being a woman. That's the line we're drawing in the sand.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, people raise a similar stink over Wind Waker. They're like, they made Link into a wimp. And it's like, yeah, because he was the Punisher before that, right?
And it gave us objectively the best version of Zelda. So
exactly. So, oh man, we got on a weird tangent there. All right, so I kind of seem I seem to be the middle ground here because I think I'm the only one that has played all of Breath of the Wild and Horizon Zero Dawn.
right.
So, and I was going back and forth about including both of them on this list, and I wanted something because 2017 has another thing that's defined it, as we said, of big open world experiences. So I was like, I want to put both, but I feel like I just to kind of give other types of games a chance, I'm only gonna go with one kind of ambassador to that genre. And I adored Horizon Zero Dawn, but compared to Zelda, like Horizon Zero Dawn's level, like mission and level design is pretty by the books. You know, it's every open world game you've played in terms of like how objectives operate and, you know, like icons. And also I loved Horizon's world, but I found myself fast traveling a lot more than I did in Zelda, just because like there's something about the way you discover new things in Zelda that felt so magical, whereas Horizon felt kind of, you know, the same thing. You know, like, oh, you know how this works, of like climb, even the way you unlock new areas of like, oh, you gotta climb a tall thing and, you know, unlock more of the map. You know, even though the tall things in this game are really cool.
I mean, like, I see where
and to be fair, Zelda has it too. But
I see what you're getting at. It's just that in Horizon Zero Dawn, I felt like I personally didn't fast travel all that much in Horizon, but that was because I found myself just constantly being kind of roped into my own unscripted adventures. Like, I would be like, oh, I want to go check out this den of whatever, and I would, you know, or like I'd go off on this side quest to like find this guy that just went off somewhere stupid, and I'd find him, and then it would rope me into a conflict with a bunch of like these invisible panther robots with sniping lasers that I had never seen before up to that point in the game.
Those guys were simultaneously awesome and a pain.
And then that would lead to me like dodging through the wilderness at night while trying to avoid these invisible panthers and like barely managing to like kill one or two, and then finding myself just completely far away from anything that I had explored before, and then just kind of like walking around and like checking out all this new stuff, these new areas, because they all felt so different. And then because of how kind of equipment is set up, you'd find yourself in these new areas, and you'd have to maybe you'd run out of ammo for the things that you already had, so you'd switch to, you know, things you hadn't tried before, and you'd learn this whole new world of combat. And I don't know, it was I felt like it was a really interesting and vibrant and like the standard that you should hold up open world gaming to from now on. But again, I didn't play Breath of the Wild, so I'm not sure if that also applies to Breath of the Wild.
I can see that those two games are going to be a thing, so we're going to shelve that debate for now. So, Battle Chef Brigade. Kevin and I have played it. You have not.
Nope.
Man,
is it Game of the Year worthy?
So, I do have some complaints about Battle Chef. For one, I feel like a lot of the upgrades felt meaningless to me, and at times kind of confusing, like the buying of different, like the recipe books and the ingredients didn't mean as much as I wish it did. Like, honestly, I kind of stuck with largely the same setup and finished the game and only made minor tweaks here and there. And also, the way the game is structured kind of renders a lot of it useless, because you don't know what you need until after you've gone into the battle, which annoyed me at times, because, you know. And again, it kind of, I guess, kind of that Iron Chef setup worked against it, because the point of Iron Chef is that you don't know what your battle's going to be until like the moment of the battle and the ingredients revealed and the judges' preferences. But like for a video game that's based around this giant inventory and like optimizing your character, that got annoying quickly, because I'd be like, well, I'm gonna fight this guy, I really don't know what to bring into this. So like, I guess I'll equip my water pot and hope that the people like water. And there were so many times they're like, I want fire, and I'm like, god damn it. I can't do anything, so I just have to kind of work with what I got. And so that got annoying with me at times. And also there's a weird point in the story where and I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a chapter towards the end that goes in a weird direction. It has nothing to do, or it has a little bit to do with the main plot, but it was weird, a weird switch. And Kevin, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Are you talking about the Thrashes part?
Yeah, like that kind of comes out of nowhere, and for me, he wasn't as much fun to play as, and I kind of wanted to get that chapter over and done with, and it was annoying the way that played out, where it just seemed like it was being prolonged for the sake of like, we got to fill a chapter with like the whole like, hey, we got to find these things. Oh, you lost those things. Well, you got to go and get all of them back. And then it's like this race against the clock, but it doesn't feel like it is, because you're spending way too much time in that place than you really should be, given what the story is kind of like set up as. So that chapter kind of annoyed me.
I kind of appreciated it because it was filling in a gap, like in the story of what was happening in the town while the main character was off. But yeah, I will have to say, Jack, that yeah, it might not be Game of the Year material, because my big complaint was that it was just too short. Like, right as I felt like I was getting in the groove of things and really like having fun, it ended. So
does it feel maybe more like a, because I don't know what they're working on after this, but does it feel more like a proof of concept? Like
it feels like it should.
Yeah, I could see it being a series.
It should be a series. It definitely feels like shit.
Yeah, like I guess, yeah, you could say it's got that kind of proof of concept feel to it, where like
it feels like it's supposed to be getting DLC in like a week. Feels like.
Yeah, so like I think like ultimately I enjoyed Battle Chef, and I appreciate its weirdness and again the Iron Chef call outs. But for me, it's not a top tier like game for me. So, would you agree, Kevin?
Yeah, I think we can strike it from the list.
Alrighty. Looks like I was trying to say something cool about taking Battle Chef. Something that matched the bear going back into his cave. I guess this battle was too hot to handle for these cooks.
Boo! Boo!
I couldn't even get it out coherently. You're already booing it. I guess the food went sour. Oh, I'm just gonna stop. All right. Persona 5. I almost want to. So I haven't played it. Jack, you haven't played it either. I want to play it. I almost want to put it on the list on kind of like a principle of like I've heard nothing but amazing things about this game. So it's hard.
I feel like we should table that for last, because what's gonna happen is it's gonna come down to Kevin having to make the definitive case for it against whatever we have not completely stricken from the record, right?
Am I the only one that played Cuphead?
Yeah,
Yes.
And I actually do have like a slight argument against it as to why like I haven't gotten it yet.
Okay, go for it.
Well, you were saying that the aesthetic is like the best part of it because it gets that 1930s down so well, and maybe a little too well, because I remember reading how racist it is, and I was just like, it's a bit problematic to be making a game that's blatantly racist in 2017.
Well, the game itself doesn't like. I've heard that that whole kind of like semi-controversy too, And it's not that the game itself has like racial elements, but the style that it's evoking has it has a racist history. Like, that cartoon style does have roots in racism, with the way that cartoonists at the time would depict certain minorities. But having played the entire game, there really isn't any of that in the game. And maybe it's because, like, there's really no, like, humans in the game. Like, there's a few, but, like, there's no minorities. Like, you're mostly fighting, like, animals or weird, just weird object things. And then the actual people are kind of, like, they're pretty, like, nothing. Just, like, there's, like, a pirate guy you fight, and he's just a pirate. There's, like, a lady who's just a lady. So, like, it seemed like... I remember reading that, like, Studio MDHR were kind of, like, somewhat ignorant to, like, that cartoon's, like, that style's history, that they just kind of picked it because they thought it was cool and didn't, like, know that it had kind of, like, roots in racism. So if there was anything, it wasn't, like, a conscious decision. It was like, oh, we didn't know that until after the fact.
Well, everyone...
But...
Sorry.
But at the same time, like, having played the whole game, and I guess being a person of color, I didn't see anything that I would deem offensive.
I guess the only things... So I haven't played Cuphead, but I did pay attention to that controversy just because I found it very interesting. Mm-hmm. And it was... like you said, there's the art style itself has kind of... has this history of having been used in these very racially charged cartoons from, yesteryear. And also the general story setup and even some of the musical tracks almost come from like directly those old-timey racist shorts, which I am not sure if... to me, it seems like it might be a step towards making those acceptable again. Not the racial element. That's not what I'm talking about. But the art style, because there's nothing inherently racist about, like, cubism or something like that. Like, it's just a style of drawing or artistic expression. And it's unfortunate to me that maybe it got lumped in with our perceptions of race and was used in that way. That being said, I can see why there are some people out there who are really uncomfortable by it, because if you watch it side by side, there are some striking similarities that were probably 100% unintentional. But I find it a very interesting controversy, and I encourage people to look more into it rather than just, like, dismissing it out of hand and being like, oh, this is ridiculous SJWBS, because there's actually some really interesting art history going on in that discussion that I don't feel 100% qualified to talk about. So, yeah.
I know that the dude with the dice for a head is the one that people point to, like, this is the racist thing.
Oh, Mr. Dice or King Dice?
Yeah. So, I don't know if you fought him, but he's apparently the bad stereotype. And, like, I'm still planning on playing the game. It's just, seeing that at launch, I was like, I can wait.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, again, like, at least me personally, like, King Dice didn't strike me as anything offensive. I was just like, oh, he's just a douchebag.
I think why people clocked King Dice as being racially insensitive was because in those old, like, 1930s cartoons, gambling was often, like, the black thing that the black characters, oh, they're goofing off gambling again. Mm-hmm. And so I guess, like, that was
and the fact that King Dice is, I guess, like, Satan's right-hand man in that game.
Yeah. So I, like, that's kind of the problem of using that art style, is because it has a history and doesn't just exist in a vacuum. And I don't know. I don't know if that's enough to hinder it. I think maybe that's something that's
kind of like an unfortunate kind of like side effect of the style that they chose.
Or rather, it's something that like everyone needs to understand that art doesn't occur in a vacuum, and that there are different elements that come from different places and mean different things and have histories. And
the more you know.
And then it's a complicated subject that's layered with so many different layers of meaning, and that's why art is really interesting. It speaks on a lot of different levels, and so, yeah.
All right. I'm not quite ready to let go of Cuphead yet, but Super Mario Odyssey. Kevin, did you play that?
I did, and pretty much only played it past New Donk City. So one of the greatest benefits for Super Mario Odyssey, I also feel, is its greatest weakness, in that the designers just guessed. You feel like the designers have guessed everything, and that, like, oh man, it's impossible to actually break this game. That's kind of the issue. It's Mario Odyssey kind of masquerades as this personal experience, but it's actually heavily catered. So it's sort of weird to see it. And besides, like, some of the stuff that they tried out, it's also a fairly bread and butter Mario game, like, when you get down to it. Like, yeah, Cappy lets you do some pretty interesting things that I really enjoyed. But I noticed that, like, after the sort of novelty wore off, I'm like, oh, okay, this is a Mario game again, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is. I would say if you compare, like, Mario with Zelda's the game that more made me kind of rethink what a Zelda game could be, more so than Mario did. Like, I didn't walk away from Mario Odyssey going, like, this is, like, Mario's changed forever. Like, this is a new chapter for Mario games. It's like, oh, that was awesome. But, like, you know, it still very much felt like a Mario game.
Yeah, I saw Cappy, and I was like, wait, why isn't this just a Kirby game?
Interesting.
I feel like you just shattered Marcus's world.
No, that's an interesting thought. I have not thought about that. Now I'm kind of, like, pondering that for a second, like, a Kirby game. Other than being, that'd be the greatest Kirby game of all time.
Let's be real, Kirby deserves better.
Kirby games are usually not that involved mechanically, but...
and I might also just be salty because I really want Wario Land.
Like a new Wario Land?
Yeah.
Is that what this is?
That's what this is really about.
If you put on the Wario outfit in Mario Odyssey...
I did that more than a little bit.
It's like, the game lets you do it. See, look at that. The game has everything. You can be Wario, sort of.
It's not the same.
It's like, he's not fat enough and gross.
He's
not farting all the time.
Okay, first of all, Wario is an entrepreneur who creates a video game studio. A very successful video game studio, FYI.
Okay.
He
it's true.
At least has, like, fundamental character flaw. Like, Wario has personality. And I feel like Mario is just kind of like, I'm the good guy. Let's go. Oh. And it's like, okay, we get it. Done. You're Mickey Mouse.
Let's be real here. We need 2019 to be the year of Luigi or Waluigi.
I would say we already got the year of Luigi.
we need the year of Waluigi, and we need a Waluigi game, because I am dying to know what Waluigi does with his spare time when he's not hanging out with the Mario cast.
I really just want the, like, Mario and Luigi RPG that's just Wario and Waluigi.
Oh, I remember working at a GameStop and me and my manager talking about a possible Wario, like they should do a new Super Mario style game, but with Wario and Waluigi. And he said this thing that blew my mind. He's like, you know how they should do it? You should run from right to left instead of left to right.
Oh,
and that blew my mind of, like, that's so simple and so brilliant.
You know, people
Like
would
that
be
one
absolutely livid.
It's like that one little touch would be amazing and fit so perfectly.
But
yeah,
with Mario
Nintendo-
Odyssey, like I appreciated the experimentation that Nintendo did, but like even the stuff like the cool pieces with like the T-Rex, it's not like you can then go off and do other things as the T-Rex. It's a very like specific moment that Nintendo gives you, and it just it just doesn't feel as organic as they were trying to go for. So it's a little weird for that game to sort of be like towing this line between, oh, you can do anything you want within this very extreme specific things.
Yeah, like, I mean, those levels are little hub worlds. They are very dense hub worlds, at least most of them. Not every kingdom hits, at least for me. Some are definitely better than others. If you could only have one, we have 2 Nintendo games here. If you can only have one of them, at least me personally, I would probably go Zelda above Mario. What would you say?
I would say Yakuza 0. No. Say Zelda was a bit better, is at least like trying something different with the formula that, I mean, it worked, it landed, it had an extreme attach rate, but yeah, no, I guess I would say Zelda.
Okay, so we'll put Zelda. Zelda's higher up than Mario right now. Mario gets shuffled down. So right now we still got Horizon, Breath, Mario, Persona, Cuphead, and Rhyme. I'm looking at...
And how many... And we have 2 already?
Well, we have Nier. Nier's the only one that's been voted on. Nier, I knew this was going to be a hard one, because like I said, this year has been really, really good. So this is more of a Sophie's choice than anything.
Okay.
Rhyme is kind of this redheaded stepchild of this list for
me
so far.
So for me, I feel like it's going to come down to trying to figure out between Rhyme, Persona 5, and
Cuphead. They're each of our individual babies.
I feel like the choice right now that we should look at is between Horizon Zero Dawn and Breath of the Wild.
They are the 2 games that are the most similar.
Yeah.
They're also 2 games that have very strong arguments to making this list. And who knows, maybe they'll both make it for all we know.
I feel like only one of them should make it.
Yeah,
we're killing one of our babies.
Yep.
And again, as the person that has played both of them in their entirety, I picked Zelda over Horizon for my personal list to include, so I'm a little hard pressed to go back in that choice a second time.
I'm gonna at the same
time. I have 2 people that are.
I'm gonna throw this out there. Horizon Zero Dawn original IP, Legend of Zelda building on a history of like 30 years.
At the same time, is it more impressive to take a franchise that's been around for that long and kind of turn it on its head the way that Zelda does?
No. Not to me. I feel like
they could have played it safe and just done what they've been doing, and it would still sold a bunch of copies.
I feel like making Legend of Zelda open world is pretty safe. Like that's a safe choice. Like that's where the entire industry has been going for like the last decade.
But not open world. They didn't even do like traditional open world the way everyone else does it, which Horizon very much does. Like, it's not like Breath of the Wild is covered in icons and stuff on the map. It does that open world, but it like I said, it does things with that design that other open world games don't do. Whereas Horizon, in many aspects, adheres to kind of like the status quo.
All right, I think we got to have our like final vote between the 2.
Between the 2, okay.
I kind of have to go with what I bought, and I didn't buy Horizon. I bought Breath of the Wild, so I guess that's where my vote goes.
That's fair. Just so you know, Marcus, though, this is probably meaning the death of Mario Odyssey going on the list.
You never say never. It's impossible. So, yeah, again, I want to stress that I adored Horizon. It's in my top 5 for last year, absolutely. But I'm going to go Zelda.
All right.
So
you're both wrong.
and this does hurt. Trust me, this hurts.
All I have to say is that Kevin, your choice not to buy Horizon Zero Dawn was, I understand it. I blame it on capitalism and forcing you to choose where between these fantastic games. Okay, so we have.
To be fair, I think that Zelda would have been unanimous if that motorcycle DLC had just been a part of the normal game.
That's what they needed. Alrighty, so Zelda, you did it. Okay, so you said that Mario is automatically off this list because Zelda made it.
Yep. I would agree with that sentiment.
Jack, you haven't played Mario. But...
all I'm saying is, after having listened to your conversation about it, it seemed like you were putting it lower on the list than Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
And it seemed like it was an either-or proposition, so I'm...
Breath of the Wild's a better game to me overall, if I had to sum them both up. But I would say Mario Odyssey is a better game than Rhyme. Rhyme is kind of... I like Rhyme, but I would call Rhyme kind of a lesser Eco.
I would say that Eco and Rhyme are doing very different things, especially with their narratives and their aesthetic and sound design and a lot of their visuals. There are some similarities, and they have some of the same design sensibilities. I would say that they are very different games, so that they're much harder to compare than Horizon and Breath of the Wild. But
also, Rhyme's platforming could be better. And
I mean, it's not
platforming's a big part of that game.
It's not really a platforming game. It's
got
you're trying to judge. Of it. I mean, that'd be like me saying, "Oh man, Mario Odyssey, really not much of an emotional adventure roller coaster."
It was not trying to be that.
Well, exactly.
Rhyme is clearly going for like the puzzle platformer.
Rhyme is definitely not going for a puzzle platformer. It's committed to its narrative. I mean, it has platforming in it, but that doesn't make it a platformer. That's like saying like Mario can shoot fireballs out of his hands, so it's a third-person shooter. It's just not so.
I'm not saying you're doing crazy platforming challenges, but it is a big part of how do you get around that world. And I'm just saying it could have been better. It's not terrible, but there were times where I was like, better. And platforming, I'd say platformers are my favorite genre, so I tend to be pretty snooty about how those control.
But again, it's not a platformer. There's just platforming in it.
It gets a little hitchy at times, I'm just saying.
I find it interesting that you want to get all of your games on this list.
Yeah, of course.
I feel like Kevin and I have given up quite a bit so far.
Kevin has Nier. Me and him were together on Nier.
He gave up Battle Chef Brigade.
I will say with Rhyme, if we're talking about like Game of the Year and like experiences that we want other people to have, that a game where, what am I reading this? Drop down to 20 frames per second on the Switch means that there is an entire like console that people cannot get it on, even though it was released on it. So
I will say though that if we're comparing it like that, then Rhyme's feat is more impressive because it came out on more than one console. So compare Mario Odyssey's one console to Rhyme's PC, Xbox One.
That's not even fair.
It's come out on more systems, so that's really more points in Rhyme's favor.
Not really. Would you say Rhyme's a jack of all trades, but a master of, well, some? Clearly one of them.
I would say that it is first and foremost an adventure game, and it does that very well.
It's doing a little too much adventuring, apparently. It went to the wrong neighborhood and messed up.
I will say, though, that I wouldn't give that spot to Odyssey. I think Odyssey's done. I think Mario has lost all of his lives. His Game of the Year list is on another podcast.
Cappy. More like crappy.
So is that official? Are you both officially voting for not even so much Rhyme on, but Mario Odyssey at all? Like, it doesn't deserve any of the 2 remaining spots.
Maybe James Polk did really good things as president of the United States. I don't know, because I'm not an American history major. But, might have done really great things. Not on Mount Rushmore. So, just saying.
So now at this point, I'm going to just want to murder Rhyme. And I have not officially crossed off Horizon because I think there's still a world where it could make it.
No, it's not. It's not going to make it.
You should
it's
be
on
happy
my
about
list.
that. It's
Cross it off. We know it's not going to get on this list.
I would. Would you put Rhyme over Horizon?
I would say that I had a much more memorable experience playing Rhyme than I did playing Horizon. I feel like Rhyme will stick with me a lot longer than Horizon will.
Marcus, let's just cut to the chase and argue Persona 5 over Cuphead.
Cuphead's the better game.
Wow.
Doesn't need to be 100. It doesn't need to be 1,000 hours long to kind of prove its greatness,
But let's be fair.
I know. I'm
the RPG mechanics. The RPG mechanics in Cuphead just aren't that great.
Well, here's the thing: is that the platforming in Persona is pretty terrible. You just can't land that jump, and it just drives me nuts. I was trying to talk to that demon that was across that hill, and he just couldn't get over there. All right, so would you? All right, and try to answer this without any bias whatsoever, Kevin. Okay.
Okay.
Is Persona one of those RPGs that takes forever for it to really get going?
Actually, no, I was really surprised. So, Persona 5 kind of does that, flash forward thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, it starts off at, very deep into the story, and you're, in the middle of a caper, so it's very, action-packed and whatnot, and then it goes back and starts that slow start. And so, it's sort of told backwards, so each time you, make a new confidant, it flashes forward into the future. And so this whole time, there's a mystery of, what's going to happen to the protagonist, but how do we get from A to B? And it was a fairly interesting and, gratifying conclusion when you finally get there, and then you get to, the rest of the story. Now, I feel like Persona 5, I have recommended more than any of the other Persona series, because it feels like the perfect starting point for people to get in on an RPG, and actually invest that time and invest those feelings. And I feel like with Cuphead, most of those feelings are just, I died again because the boss did a thing. Yeah, that's how those old games used to play, but there's a reason why games don't play like that anymore. It's because we learned that sucked, and we had to do better. That's why Platinum games don't, none of their bosses ever do, random bullshit, and then you're well, I guess I died. Because Platinum knows how to make good bosses. That's why none of the bosses in Nier, when you died at them, you knew it was your fault. And with Cuphead, all I see, I've looked at those bosses, and, they suddenly just do something completely different out of the blue, and I'm just wow. There's no way that you could have been prepared for that, because they never showed in the design itself, hey, watch out for this. Say, with, Contra, where they would have, the thing shoot out flames out of its mouth to be oh, hey, by the way, this thing shoots flames out of its mouth. You know exactly what you're getting into.
I don't know. Some Contra could pull some crap too at times, but anyway. So I would counter that with yes, the game's hard. It can be punishing at times. Not to the degree of a certain other popular series, Dark Souls, that does the same crap with its bosses.
And it's starting to feel like the Dark Souls podcasts.
Dark Souls podcast. Again, I would counter that Cuphead's difficulty is largely fair and like the bosses are very, very well designed. Again, I'm not denying that there are points depending on how you're situated in certain areas that something can happen to you, and you get kind of like, you hit something that you didn't see coming, but those fights are also very short. Like an entire fight might last a minute, so you can get like it might feel like an eternity, but like because they give you your time, and like those are very, very quick fights. They feel like they're longer than that because they're just edge of your seat, just white knuckle affairs where you're just like, come on. But just that reward of toppling a boss after multiple attempts feels so good, and one of the best feelings I've had this year of like just taking that boss down and just jumping out of your chair and going like, yes, I did it. And especially, like I said, that progress meter is such a cool addition to those kind of games of just you can track how much better you're getting with every attempt of like, okay, I got a little bit further. So like, as tough as those games can be, that little meter alone kind of alleviates a lot of that frustration because you can see it. And again, it's so effective in making you want to keep trying again and again and again. So
you mentioned this year. So we're talking about the games that are perfect for 2017. And I feel like for Persona, a game about youths just rising up and fighting for what's right, despite everyone telling them not to, and just all of this negativity was perfect. It perfectly encapsulated this year. And just, if you want to talk about progress bars, you know who did progress bars before Cuphead? RPGs, because bosses have different forms as they get dwindled down health-wise, and so hey, I'm getting close because I can see this guy sweating profusely, his demon is starting to break down. So if you really want that progress bar, you could have it graphically, just in your face, and you can tell that the boss is almost done.
At least you think. It's still not as clear as like, oh, literally, I'm right in front of the flag at the end. Like, I was there. I had him. And then I died. It's not quite. Well, okay. So, Persona, it's 100 hours roughly. Is it good that it's that long? Do you think it benefits the game to be that long? Like, does the story remain exciting? Like, are there any lulls? Or would you have liked it to be shorter?
So, there are a few palaces, or there is at least like one palace that just doesn't feel like it has the same impact. Persona 5 kind of starts off really strong. Like, you're a group of youths who are planning to take down a sexual predator. Like, there is no greater satisfaction in being like, yes, this is a goal that I want to achieve. And so, like, afterward, the next palace might not feel quite as pressing. But I feel overall that the story beats are perfect, and the time that it takes you to get there allows you to explore those social links. And really just, like, each of those characters are so amazingly fleshed out. Like, my personal favorite is Tai Takemi, the, like, ostracized goth doctor with the heart of gold, who's just, like, coming to terms with trying to rectify her mistake and becoming this, like, sort of small-town doctor helping out with all these different ailments. And that's just one character. That is a side character in Persona. So just imagine the, like, actual stories that come out from the main characters, character growth, the, like, absolutely just devastating decisions that they end up having to make. Like, I don't want to spoil too much, but one of the party members has to basically decide to destroy her own life for the greater good. So, yes, I do believe that for Persona to take its sweet-ass time to actually get there, there's a reason. It's because all of those hours matter and contribute to this game that not only manages to mix, like, fighting demons and going to school, but makes the going to school part interesting. Like, sure, Cuphead is making you, like, super on the edge of your seat because they're throwing so much at you. But I feel like it's a testament to the fact that Persona 5 made me go, holy shit, I want to go home and study.
Wow, what an amazing fantasy. Go home. I always wanted to do that in the game. You know what you do in Cuphead? You gamble your soul away to the devil, and he makes you go hunt down soul contracts for him to win your freedom.
Okay, but in Persona 5, you can also eventually summon Satan, Beelzebub, Lucifer. So there's not just one Satan in Persona 5. You can get a few of them if you so desire, and you can make deals with all of them.
So I have a question about Cuphead. Is Cuphead the kind of game that you're still going to be thinking about next year?
Yes.
Is it like the year after that? Like how much staying power do these games have for you, and why?
Okay, at least I mean Cuphead, if for nothing else, that art style is gonna keep it on people's minds because literally there's nothing that looks like that, and that you could say that's a superficial thing, but you eat with your eyes first, and like when you're the only thing that looks like that, you're gonna get attention for a long time. So
is that the only thing that it has really going for it? Like the only things I've heard about Cuphead are that it's really hard and that's good, and that the art style and the soundtrack, like those are the three things.
I mean, that is like I'd say if you summed up Cuphead, it's like the presentation is just charming and that's what gets you in, and then the gameplay, which it's deceptively hard because you might think it's like, oh, it's probably this breezy little thing, and you're like, oh no. Which I admittedly you could maybe be a knock against it, not that the difficulty makes it a bad game, but I've heard people say that they were disappointed that it was as hard as it was. They're like, oh, I can't see all the cool stuff in this game because I'm not I don't have the dexterity to play all of it.
Is it? So I guess what I'm trying to come down to, is it more style over substance, or is it like evenly spread out?
Yeah, cause that was my biggest fear, was that it would be style over substance. But again, like it is a pure game in that it is very much you versus the game. Like if you win, it is because you were good. Like right. Which I like. I mean, I enjoy difficult games in general, so maybe it's a bit of a taste thing. Especially like fair difficulty, like I like that feeling of like there's no hand holding here, like I know what I have to do, I just have to like execute, and the game is polished enough to let you do that. So like I don't know, like I for me it's an extremely, like I said before, like I think it's one of the premier kind of indie games of this current generation.
So I guess is it doing things that no other games like that have done before, gameplay wise, or taking aside the visuals and the soundtrack, take that out of the equation, is it pushing forward that kind of Contra like shooter in any significant way?
Well, I guess if you're comparing to Contra, because like the structure is so much different, because Contra was primarily a bunch of platforming levels, whereas this is mostly just all boss battles.
Yeah.
Which is different for kind of like a I guess like a side-scrolling platformer to put the emphasis on like, hey, we're gonna have these really elaborate boss battles, and that's about with a fair amount of, or not a fair amount, with the occasional run and gun level. So it's got that going for it, but in terms of like the core gameplay, no, it's not. It's not doing anything dramatically like, well, I've never seen this before, jumping around and shooting a thing. That's there's a zillion of those games, but it's an exceptional one of those games.
Okay. And what about Persona 5? Like, how different is it from your average JRPG?
So, just aesthetically, it is very different. Like, Persona 5 has some of the best UI that I've ever seen, which is really strange to be excited about, but they somehow made it just this extremely stylish game. I feel with Persona 5, while it may not be pushing JRPGs that much, it is developing that Persona formula, which did do that initial push. So having it refined to the point where I can actually feel like I can recommend this JRPG to a casual gamer because they're going to understand it, is how I feel like it's going to keep coming up. So Just
Hey, Kevin.
what?
What if we just put Persona and Cuphead, and then we could just flip off Rhyme?
Jeez.
How does that sound?
Wow.
Just putting it up. There's two.
Ultimate anime betrayal.
I'm just saying.
Wow.
There's 2 spots left, and if Horizon is truly out, there are only 3 games left, so one has to go. Now, what
happened to
I'm
Sexy
extending
Brutal?
Horizon a second chance to get on the list. I personally don't want to take it out entirely, but if it is out entirely, then
What happened to Sexy Brutal?
no, we took out the Sexy Brutal really early. Like
Yeah.
Jack himself took it out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just
Jack,
saying.
how do you feel about this betrayal?
See, I'm fine with Persona 5 getting on the list. I don't personally. I think if it comes down to Cuphead and Rhyme, I think the question then becomes, what do we want our Rushmore to be about? Do we want it to be kind of a love letter to retro games and kind of the old world, or do we want it to be kind of a forward-thinking vision of what games could be? And I think Rhyme embodies that kind of future vision of games that do more than just let you run around and kill things. And I find that very interesting.
At the same time, if I'm looking at Rhyme and Persona, I am personally, and this is not having played Persona yet, but having played Rhyme, I'm more willing to give the tip of the cap to Persona, and this is out of no malice towards Rhyme.
No, you're playing politics. You're playing politics to try and get Kevin on your side.
No, let me just... I feel like if we're looking at impact-wise, I feel like Persona made the bigger conversation this year.
So what I'm hearing is Persona's on the list.
Huh?
Yeah.
I think... I mean, Jack, you yourself kind of tipped the hat to Persona too. So it seems
I'm
like
fine with Persona being on the list.
Okay, so
the
Persona's
actual
on the
argument
list.
is Rhyme versus Cuphead.
Yeah.
All right, so Persona is officially on the list. So Rhyme versus Cuphead.
So here's the fun part. I am the deciding vote. I have played neither of these games.
And I'm the complete opposite. I have played both games.
And you know what? I'm just gonna throw it out there. There's no racial controversy about Rhyme.
oh, really?
Damn! Just the body blow. That was great.
Well, you talk about Rhyme. If you're looking at like doing a Rushmore of games that did anything differently, like Rhyme isn't like this revolutionary new idea. It just kind of borrows things from other games and makes, like kind of like Cuphead. Like, Cuphead's kind of a love letter to Contra with this art style that no one has done. Versus Rhyme, which is like, it's got a little bit of eco.
The art style was done by cartoons in the 1930s.
Again, but it's having played the whole game, there's nothing like blatantly racist about Cuphead.
No,
itself.
but like you're saying, the art style has never been done before. It's very specifically been done before. That's why they used it.
Well, I mean, done before in video games. Whereas Rhyme is, a sprinkling of a couple of things into a whole that, and again, I don't want to come off as like saying that Rhyme's a bad game. It's not a bad game. It's a completely solid game, and I, for the most part, enjoyed my time with it. But as I've expressed before, I have a couple of chief complaints with it. Namely, it just doesn't it doesn't take off the way I hoped it did from like a gameplay kind of like viewpoint. Whereas Cuphead, I had an absolute blast. Just
and that's
and it was all Cuphead always surprises, whereas Rhyme is kind of like it kind of like, especially like midway, like you learn a little bit of stuff, like okay, this is cool. Like like I said, like I love the ending to that game, but like the middle road getting to it, I'd be hard pressed to kind of like call out any like crazy specific thing.
Well, and so here's the thing, and again, this will come down to kind of a difference of views on games on a fundamental level. What do you think is more interesting? Do you think something that is mechanically more solid is something that's more important to making a good and impactful video game, or is it something that has a much stronger narrative and emotional core? Because I feel like the narrative and emotional core of Rime is probably much stronger than what Cuphead has going for it.
I will say this. Other games that are like Rime that came out this year in terms of like emotional story heavy experiences, like Night in the Woods or What Remains of Edith Finch.
Night in the Woods sucked.
I will say both of those are better than Rime.
But what about the platforming in Night in the Woods?
Actually, that's better than Rime too. Be honest, if we're being honest.
No.
But I mean, it's probably got maybe as much platforming as Rime does, if not a little more so. But I've never had a time where I was like, this feels bad to me. Like especially when you're jumping on those power lines, it feels really nice. So if we're looking at other story heavy little indie games, and you know what? I might even go as far to say that maybe Tacoma was a better game than Rime. And that's one of those.
I didn't play that, so I'm not sure.
I think that we should just put Yakuza 0. I think that's the only way to end this.
The answer is Yakuza.
The Dark Horse.
Okay. He runs interference last minute. Here comes Yakuza. Last minute entry. He's like the guy at the wedding that busted the door. Like, I object! So, yeah, like, my stance is that not only is Rime not as good as Cuphead, it's not even the best at what it's trying to do compared to other games doing similar things this year or last year.
I mean, I disagree with you on a fundamental level, but it's hard to really get into the nitty-gritty details without going into major spoilers for Rime.
Do you want to... I was debating going into this if I would allow spoiler talk, unless it became a dire situation, and if we put spoiler warnings.
Well, part of the problem is Kevin would be the deciding vote, and he hasn't played it.
Well, judging by the Switch version, he may never play it.
I mean,
well, Kevin, where are you sitting right now? Having listened to kind of both of us say our piece, what are you leaning towards?
So I appreciate what Jack is saying with Rime, like actually having something that tries to do something different. Like maybe, like you're saying, there were other things that did it better, but at least it attempted to. Whereas Cuphead very much leaned on the old in order to seem new.
And I will point out that it succeeded in the way that it counted for Rime, because Rime isn't about platforming the way that Mario Odyssey is about platforming, and it's not about solving puzzles the way that insert puzzle game that we didn't nominate this year. So it's not about those things, so it doesn't necessarily set out
I just feel like
to
the story...
set the bar out those things.
I feel like Rime's story wasn't consistently engaging the entire way through. Like, there were so many lulls of just, like, just not caring as much as I wanted to about, like, what was going on and, like, the mystery of that world, whereas other, like, Edith Finch or Night in the Woods, I was engaged with the story the entire way through. And that bothers me about Rime.
And I think that's part of what makes this discussion hard, because I think we have very different...
different tastes,
different tastes when it comes to maybe this type of game. Because I found Night in the Woods insufferable. I did not like it. And so
you like sad cats?
No, I thought I was so done with that game. Really fast. But So really, it might come down to a matter of taste. I think if you are the kind of person who values, and that's why, for me, it seems like it's coming down to a conversation between Love Letter to the Olden Days, where skill was skill and men were men, and kind of this more forward-looking.
Is it though?
I think it is, because it's the entire point of the game isn't necessarily to have the best mechanics. It's trying very specifically to get across its narrative and its narrative intent, both through mechanics and otherwise, and that might not necessarily lend itself to the best feeling platforming from a gameplay mechanical perspective, but from the narrative and like the narrative it's trying to get across, it's perfect for that.
I feel like
okay, let's do closing arguments.
Okay, cut and dry. Rhyme tries to do, and I hesitate to say I'm not quite on board with you in terms of like it does things that are like brand new or like unlike anything else, because I just don't buy that. I think there's other games that have done what Rhyme has done. And I would say, like, the things that it tries to do, it stumbles. It's not terrible. Again, I don't want to come off as Rhyme's a bad game. It's a fine game, but it stumbles in several areas of what it's trying to do, whereas Cuphead sets out to do its thing and knocks it out of the park. It's a thing that's been done, but it does it exceptionally well. Like, and also while presenting a presentation that, again, has not been done, nailing it, and then the actual boss designs being as well designed and just completely just as creative as those boss designs are and how those battles unfold is, like, I don't know. The creativity behind that game speaks more than like the things that Rhyme tries to do, but doesn't quite hit the mark for me. I think that setting out to do something and nailing it, as opposed to trying to do something new, while admirable but not quite hitting the mark, is,
I mean, so okay. So here's the thing about everything you said being wrong. Rhyme is like, it's like you mashed up Ico with Studio Ghibli and had an emotional core that was more than just weird horned child on an island saving girl. And what makes the central theme of Rhyme is that the entire game you are getting to know this kid and getting to know about his life and his adventures and just everything that makes him a full person. And you slowly come to the realization that this is all about loss, and it's a deeply sad and moving game, and it's really, really fantastic. And the whole journey takes place in all these different stages, and these different stages represent different parts of this whole they represent different parts not only of this kid's journey, but also of a journey that I feel everyone can kind of relate to. And maybe that hit me particularly hard this year just because of things that were going on in my life, but it's one of the only games that got a really, really strong emotional reaction out of me this year. And I feel like Cuphead's a really, really, really great time. And it feels really great to play. I don't know that that's something that would stick with me for, the next 5 years. I feel like it's going to be one of those games that is remembered for its art style and its soundtrack, but that's it. Whereas Rhyme has more going on beneath the surface, and maybe the mechanics don't always work and feel 100% on point, but I feel like that's part of the charm of the game. So that's my piece. I said it.
Kevin, you are effectively the tiebreaker here. So what's it gonna be? Is it gonna be Rhyme or is it gonna be Cuphead?
Well, I think that the only real way to break this tie is if you both buy these games for me.
Fortunately, we can't do that. So you gotta give us a vote.
So, as Jack was saying, like, games don't exist in a vacuum, and releasing a game like that elicits an emotional response in this year is pretty daring. Like, Wolfenstein was not daring until it was being released this year. So,
which is a really sad state of affairs.
yeah. Anywho, so I guess during this argument, I've been convinced to buy Rhyme and didn't have any sort of change with Cuphead, so I guess I'm going to have to go with Rhyme.
Yes!
All right, so the winner is Horizon Zero Dawn. There we go. Congratulations, Gorilla. You made it. Alrighty.
I do have to say, though, in terms of soundtracks, Cuphead is definitely one of the best soundtracks of the year. I would also nominate Rhyme's soundtrack as being one of the best of the year. We got a lot of good video game music this year. So.
Yeah, turns out we got a lot of good video games this year, and as if you can't judge by how long this has gone longer than even I anticipated, but...
Yeah, Mr. 90 minutes, we're going to keep it under 90 minutes.
I know, right? But you know what? It wasn't boring. There was a lot of very, very good discussion, a lot of surprising discussion that I didn't expect to come up, which is awesome. I'm glad that happened. So, one more time, our final Rushmore, the 4 standout games of 2017. We've got Nier Automata, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Persona 5, and Rhyme. There it is.
Just the way you said it. Rhyme.
Yes.
And I wasn't even trying to say it with like any shade. Maybe it just subconsciously came out that way. Let me try it again. Rhyme. There you go. Rhyme did. Hey, it's okay. Like I said, Rhyme's not a bad game at all, unless I guess you play it on the Switch. Don't play it on the Switch, basically. Play it on the other platforms that it's on. But yeah. Wow. Thank you, gentlemen. That was quite a discussion / debate. I did not expect it to come down to Cuphead and Rhyme the way that it did. But that's awesome. And very quickly, any final thoughts about this year, about this list that you'd like to share?
Yakuza 0 should be number 0 on the list.
Alex can go die in a fire.
Me, Elix?
Elix, whatever.
So you can't even... Yeah, it's so bad you can't even get the name right. Can't be bothered.
Let me just say that the very first interaction you have with another character in Elix, he tells you, like, about 10 times that you can get supplies in the nearby settlement. Unprompted. It's not like you're going through a in-depth dialogue tree. He just says it, like, 10 times. And the dialogue never really gets better.
Oh.
I hated that game.
Yeah. I'm just going to say Mass Effect Andromeda should have been on this list, but it didn't even come close. It just completely, like, if you took a swing at the side of a mountain, it somehow missed. So, there's that. And, so that wraps up our Mount Rushmore for 2017. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed these debates and these conversations, and please feel free to chime in and tell if you disagree with any of these picks or any of our specific arguments, or if you agree. Or please I encourage you to share your thoughts as well as maybe what your personal Mount Rushmore for 2017 is. And one more time, I want to thank you, Jack, and you, Kevin, for joining me. And just to give you guys a quick plug, Mr. Jack, where can they find you if they want to talk to you? And is there anything you would like to get out there?
Yeah, you can find me over on Twitter at RiverboatJack. You can also find my game stuff over on community.extra-life.org. And if you've never heard of Extra Life before, it's an awesome gaming charity. You can sign up and choose which Children's Miracle Network hospital you want to raise money for, and then 100% of everything you raise goes directly to that hospital. It's pretty great, so check that out over on extra-life.org.
Alrighty. And Kevin Slackie, where can they find you? And if anything you'd like our listeners to keep an eye out for anything you're doing.
You can find me on Twitter at KSLACKIE. You can find some of the stuff that I've written on both Game Informer and Paste. I occasionally write whatever I feel like on my own WordPress, which you can view. I think the last thing I wrote about is how Meta Knight actually has PTSD and is probably going through this terrible mindset of having to raise essentially a child to be the last hope of the universe.
All right.
But
I'm
actually taking a bit of a break from game journalism, so I'll pop in from time and again.
Okay.
Right.
And what is your WordPress site?
Just kslacky.wordpress.com.
Alrighty, you can go there if you want to read about Meta Knight's crippling PTSD. That now made me really sad. And of course, Marcus Stewart, me, the lovely gentleman speaking right now. You can find me on Twitter at MarcusStewart7. That is the number 7. And you can find all of my nonsense on my own WordPress. That is marcuswritesaboutgames.wordpress.com. I've got some end-of-year stuff up. You can read my one-sentence thoughts for all 2018's biggest games, as well as some random Game of the Year awards that I've given to 2017 games. And so, yeah, please stay tuned for that. And thank you for joining me again for Carving Gaming Rushmores. Keep an ear out. We've got more mountains that we got to carve a bunch of faces into. We've got more arguments to be had. We've got more chances to kick Rhyme's ass and get it off of this list. So, yeah, thanks for listening, and see you next time.
You can't get it off the list, Marcus. You can't get it off. It's already carved into the mountain.
We'll see about that.